The courtroom was silent. The kind of silence that crushes air, that swells like a storm just before it breaks. A frail man in ragged clothes stood alone in the defendant's box, his posture straight despite the tremble in his fingers. The bailiff had just read his name aloud, James Carter, and heads turned not in recognition, but confusion. But one man at the bench, went pale. The judge, his grip tightened on the gavel, his eyes locked on the defendant, not in judgment, but disbelief, and then a whisper escaped his lips. No, it can't be. Sergeant James Carter. James Carter had once worn the uniform of honor. He'd led men through desert storms and ambushes in silence. Twice deployed, Silver Star, 2 bullet wounds, one haunting memory that never let go. After returning home, there was no cheering crowd, no parade, only quiet. Then paperwork, then therapy, then silence again. The apartment went first, then the job, then his wife, who couldn't sleep beside a man who screamed in his dreams. By the time winter arrived, James was sleeping behind the bus station, feeding pigeons with crumbs he didn't eat himself. He never begged. Not once. But the pain carved valleys in his face. People passed him every day. Some gave change. Most looked away. That day, a security guard caught him sleeping near a shopping plaza dumpster, accused him of trespassing, resisting, even assault. It was swift. The cuffs cold. The trial set within the week. And now, here he stood. Alone, the prosecution moved quickly. A repeat offender, they said. Refused shelter. Confrontational. A danger to himself and others. They pointed to surveillance footage, blurry, distant, inconclusive. The public defender sat beside him, nervous, underprepared, flipping through a folder with barely 5 pages inside. The courtroom murmured. Spectators leaned forward in their seats. Some saw just a vagrant, another case on the docket. Others, something they couldn't name, but the judge couldn't stop staring. He leaned in, squinting harder now. Defendant, step closer to the microphone, he said, voice oddly hoarse. James did. State your full name and branch of service, the judge asked, eyes unreadable. A pause. Then softly, James Matthew Carter, United States Marine Corps, 1st Battalion, 3rd Marines, retired. And in that moment, something shifted. The judge sat back slowly, a breath caught in his throat. Across the room, a court clerk dropped her pen. The judge rose from his seat. The room went still. That he stepped down from the bench, robe billowing faintly, and walked toward the defendant's box, breaching protocol, breaking distance. The prosecutor stood abruptly. Your Honor. Silence, he said, without looking back. Now inches from James, the judge looked deep into his weathered face. And then it came, low and raw. You saved my life. Fallujah, 2004. Gasps filled the room. James blinked. Sir, I don't. You pulled me out of that burning Humvee. I had shrapnel in my leg. You dragged me across 300 yards of open sand under fire. You covered my body with yours. His voice cracked. I've been trying to find you for 15 years. Tears filled the judge's eyes. And for the first time in years, James Carter cried too. Not from pain, but from being seen. The judge turned to the court. This man is a hero, a decorated Marine, and we let him fall through every crack this country has. He faced the prosecutor. Charges dismissed. Immediately, then louder, for the room. If there is anyone in this courthouse with a conscience, they will not let him walk back into the streets alone. A woman from the gallery rose. A social worker. She stepped forward, voice shaking. I can help him. I have housing access, resources, trauma therapy. I didn't know who he was. And suddenly the silence broke. Another hand rose. Then another. An old man, a veteran himself, a young lawyer, a teenage boy who had come for jury duty and wiped his eyes with his sleeve. James Carter didn't say much as he walked out of that courtroom, surrounded by strangers who suddenly felt like brothers that he didn't have to. His name, long buried beneath the dust of neglect, now meant something again. Not just in medals or memories, but in the minds of people who once forgot that he would sleep inside that night. And the night after, he would eat warm meals, speak with counselors, maybe even write letters to the daughter he hadn't seen in 10 years. But more than that, he would start to believe again that dignity could be restored, that honor once lost, could still return home. There are thousands like James Carter. Heroes forgotten not by history, but by humanity. They don't need pity. They need recognition. They need a hand, not a headline. So if this story moved something in you, don't just scroll past that. Be the reason someone believes in dignity again. Share this. Tell their stories. Open your eyes. And most of all, never forget a name, because it just might be the one that saved you. Subscribe if you believe the world needs more moments like this.